we're back. Okay, Meg, we're going to get real here because people need to get to know Meg and Marg. Who are we? But more importantly, how we met and how we came together. And you know, in our first segment there, we were talking about the power of a moment. Well, I'm going to get real and tell a little bit about me, because that's how I ended up meeting you and why really I'm so critically passionate about preventative and integrative health. And that's because of my own health story. You know, as a really young girl, I went years undiagnosed, and parents taking me to doctor, to specialist, to hospital, and really being told, because I didn't look sick, that I was everything from a hypersensitive only child to a drug-seeking teen, to a competitive athlete with a nervous stomach. And I was none of those things. Maybe I was an only child with a nervous stomach. Yeah. Maybe that was true, but
it's a symptom and problem
yes.
thing here, right? Are we treating a symptom, or are we treating the source of it, or a cause, right?
Right.
So,
and for years, no one would listen because I didn't look the part of being sick, but I knew deep down, as did my parents, doctor after doctor, that something was seriously wrong with me. And after over a decade, and 10 surgeries, 4 bowel obstructions, a lung collapse, and one of your favorites, Megan, I had a poop transplant. Yeah, I said it in episode 1. I had a hospital-borne infection, C. difficile. I almost died, literally, very, very sick, and thousands of dollars of antibiotics that kept making me sicker. And it was my son's fecal matter in an ice cream container, flying halfway across the country to see Dr. Thomas Louie to have a fecal transplant that literally within 2 days changed my health. Yeah. Now, did I have a lot of work to do after that? Yes, but 30 plus years ago, when going through all of this, I knew one thing to be profoundly true, and that was, if it wasn't for conventional medicine, I wouldn't be speaking to you today, because I needed that. I needed the surgeries. I needed the things. But equally and as profoundly true, if it wasn't for complementary, notice I didn't say alternative. If it wasn't for complementary medicine, I wouldn't be speaking to you either. I had a poop transplant, for crying out loud. And so that led to me really wanting to make a difference in my life and in my career. It's been my life's mission to change the way we look at healthcare. So 31 years ago, on April the 6th, I opened Wallace for Wellness. I called it Wallace and Associates at the time because I wanted it to sound like a law firm, because as a massage therapist, massage therapy wasn't what it is today. And I had a mission. I wanted to bring healthcare professionals under one roof to empower, to put the patient, the person at the center, so they could become the CEO of your health. And 30 years later, last year, when I sold the clinic and embarked on this new journey, which we're going to talk about in a moment, I accomplished that with all kinds of healthcare professionals under one roof, with thousands of people and generations coming through the doors to empower themselves to take ownership of their health. And that led me actually to how we met back in the day when back in the day, 21 years ago, almost 22 years ago. I was going
to say, it's getting there.
Yeah.
What do you mean? I'm only 25. You didn't exactly. You didn't meet me 22 years ago.
You look at 22 years ago, I was blessed to have a baby. I had severe endometriosis and was told I may never have children, and many surgeries before my husband and I were able to conceive our beautiful son, Blake, who's now a 27-year-old amazing man. But then infertility took hold, and endometriosis, a major cause of infertility. And it was really frustrating. And I really wanted another child, although I felt blessed with having a son. And so we sought out infertility treatments at this clinic.
This clinic that I just so happened to be at.
You bet. And not just so happened to be at, you were the person, my sonographer, that tracked my menstrual cycles and literally scanned me for better part of over a year, 18 months, right, Meg? You remember that?
I like to say that I was your personal sonographer, but
yes,
I believe other people had a hand in it as well.
Yeah, that's true. Perhaps.
But no, I was definitely your personal sonographer.
You were.
No.
You were. And it was those moments when we went there, and I'm going to say this outright, I didn't get pregnant through infertility treatments. It was a journey, but as we said, life brings people together for a season and for a reason, and we don't always know at the time. We hit it off right away. I was in a really vulnerable place in my life, and you were amazing.
Well, and thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You know, you really
were. I thought that you were amazing. And it's funny that you're saying how vulnerable you felt. And this was a very low period of your life. But my recollection of you has always been, wow, here is this dynamic woman. She's amazing. She's running her own business. And you always just came through the doors with an energy before you. Your energy preceded you, which was an amazing energy. And despite you going through some troubles at the time or something that was very frustrating and out of your control, you still always brought a bright light to the room for me. And I was always looking forward to seeing you because I felt so encouraged and interested in you as a person. And again, your energy. It was always your energy for me. So there was the power of that moment. And I was like, how can I work with this lady? How can I spend more time with this lady?
Right.
And I mean, patient and practitioner, very blurry lines, I suppose we could say.
Right.
Because you also were a practitioner. You were a massage therapist.
Yes, and you ended up coming to see me for treatment.
I saw you too.
You did. Which was really kind of cool. It was neat to have, you in my space and me in yours. And I ended up leaving the infertility clinic and saying that we were blessed with one child.
Yes.
And then my husband, Rick, and our son, Blake, who was just a little guy at the time, 5 years old, we went off to Spain on holiday. And okay, we're going to get real here because for those listeners at home now, you're going to say, oh my gosh, TMI, too much info. But we said we were going to keep it real at this table, so I'm going to do that. And I had the pleasure of coming home from that trip and treating you on my treatment table. And I remember you being so excited to hear about my trip to Spain. And how was it? And it was great. And we had a great time and all the things. And then you, with your medical hat on, your sonographer hat, your infertility hat.
That I knew too much about you.
Yes.
I knew more about your cycles than my own.
You knew more about my menstrual cycles than I cared to, because when you go through infertility treatments, and any women out there that have gone through that, or couples, because it is a thing you go through together. It is not just about the woman, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
But boy, oh boy, you get all consumed by it. And once I decided that we were blessed with one, I was told maybe I wouldn't have children. I was very lucky. I just sort of turned that off, and we went away on vacation. And when we came back, you were one of the first people I was treating in my clinic afterwards. And you said to me very casually, how was your trip? It was great. And then you said, oh, that really sucks, that you didn't have your period when you had your period when you were away in Spain. Yeah. And I went, no, I didn't. And you said, what do you mean, no, you didn't?
What? You didn't? Why not? You should have.
Exactly. And then I thought, what? Wait a minute. Maybe she's right. And it was one of those light bulb moments like, oh my goodness, maybe I did. And that sheer, oh my goodness. And you said, you got to come to the clinic
immediately.
Tomorrow. My husband was traveling at the time. I didn't say anything, but I did go the next morning. But I still went about my business until that phone call came in. When you actually said to me, are you sitting down?
Yes.
Because guess what? I wasn't a patient of the infertility clinic anymore, but I was pregnant.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I kept saying to you, check the results. Are you sure it's me? Remember that? Remember that?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, so now let's fast forward 21 years later, 20 years later, almost 21.
Yes.
Last spring, when I closed down Wallace for Wellness. Tell everybody a little bit about what your journey has been in the last 20 years, because you didn't stay at the infertility clinic.
I did not.
But you came back to me last April. Tell me where you've been and why you came to me.
Yeah. That's a very probing question.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why I came back to you, let me rewind. As you all know now, I am a sonographer by trade, and that is how I met Marg. I followed Marg over the years. We connected, I would say, once every couple of years or something like that. I left the fertility clinic. I was working in a hospital at the time. My father became ill, and that's why I left the fertility world to go to a place where that I could be closer to my parents when he was going through his illness. So yes, I was in the fertility clinic, then I was at the hospital, then I was at clinics. I was all over doing different things, and then I came back to the fertility world. And then I went into something called applications. So I was helping people who were purchasing ultrasound machines. I was supporting the people who were actually providing the ultrasounds, whether it was a clinic or a hospital, and a whole new world had opened up to me with that. But after about 10 or 11 years, I ended up being part of a corporate restructuring, shall we call it, and was left in a position where, what do I do now? And it was really interesting that the stars aligned the way they did, because you were the first person after 20 something years. I thought, okay, what's she up to now? I'm gonna give her a call, see what things are happening in her life, and see if this might be an interesting time to work with you.
Right.
I had come into possession of something called an EchoLite Echo S machine, which does bone density examinations using ultrasound and radio frequency. And I called you and said, hey, Marg, what you doing? Do you want to do something with me?
Yeah, you sure
did. And it was
did.
our opportunity to collaborate. And then that's when our joint partnership here was born.
Yeah. And, you know, one might say, well, what's bone density have to do with preventative health? It has everything to do, because, you know, we can think about, first of all, it took courage for you to step outside the box. And it's kind of a great segue to say that it takes courage to be the CEO of your health and to really lean into preventative health awareness. And that's what we want to do here. We want to really talk about why it's so important to be the CEO of your health and to have the courage to do things. And here you were out of a job and now bringing this new technology from Europe to Canada and recognizing that this is going to change the narrative around bone health. And me as a massage therapist, musculoskeletal health is what I do. You know, the mind and body are connected, but when we think about musculoskeletal health, it impacts every system of our bodies. And unfortunately, we said at the beginning of our episode today that we literally pilfer-nil, wait till things are broken. In this case, we literally wait until somebody has broken a bone before they can get something called a DEXA here in this country, which is your bone mineral density testing, which, by the way, is radiation. This ultrasound is not. You have to go to a hospital. And that the EchoLite machine that we are now working with actually gives bone quality or bone strength, your fragility risk fracture score. So you're really finding out more about your bone health, but it can happen and start over the age of 21 instead of waiting till you're 65 to get a DEXA in this country.
That's right.
Or until you break something. So it collided us back together again.
It really did.
And now we've been, over the last almost year, really starting to ignite conversations about the importance of preventative health from the bone health perspective, but it opens because it touches everything. I mean, people don't realize that bone health is silent like many things.
Right.
And I think people for generations have been bought into fear of finding something out. So we're just going to ignore it. I'm not going to go to the doctor. What if I find something out? Or I'm fine.
Yeah. Or your father, you know, that older generation.
Yeah.
I don't need to go see a doctor. There's nothing wrong with me.
Right. Right.
Well, it's okay. If you think there's nothing wrong with you, that's okay. It's okay to check if your status is still good, though.
Right.
You know, you don't want to wait till that check engine light's on to go and do a preventative maintenance kind of thing,
and
right?
I love that analogy because I often talk about, you look in Canada on a Saturday sunny morning in the summer and people are out buffing their cars and putting thousands of dollars into their vehicles. But I always say, who's driving the car if you're 6 feet under? But when you ask people to invest in their health, both time and money, it becomes a foreign concept.
Right.
And we're here to change that and together, bringing us back together again and our different, you know, you're now both mothers. You've got, are you ready? 4 children. Unbelievable. I've got 2. We've got aging parents. We both lost our dads and we love them very much and miss them greatly. We adore our mothers and they're great leaders for both of us, but we want to see them thrive at every age. We want to see our youth thrive in our future. And we want to really look at the lens of healthcare differently. And to do that, we have to be disruptive. We have to change the mindset of the way we think from this pill for no till it's broken to one where I'm going to invest and investigate.
Absolutely.
And investigate what's happening instead of being that see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, and it'll go away, because it just doesn't.
Absolutely.
And what if we could thrive by having these conversations and finding your healthcare team and being the most important member of your healthcare team? I mean, that's what both of us have done in our personal lives. You in showing the courage, Megan. And, you know, I got to say it, like, it's been amazing to watch you over the last year really get vulnerable and lean into something very new. You've always worked in corporations and to go out and be an entrepreneur, that's scary.
It is scary, but
And
it's fun.
It's fun.
It's fun.
But let's talk about how that relates to our health, because how many conversations have we had where there's been tears? There's been fears. Tears for Fears.
Yeah.
That was a group, wasn't it?
The 80s.
That was an 80s group.
Yeah, if you're under the age of whatever, you will have no idea what we're talking about.
Right. But in leaning in and trying something new, this just speaks to how the mind and body are connected. When we're fearful and we live in a fearful state, physiologically things happen in our body. Mental health and physical health are intertwined. They cannot be separated. Although in our siloed healthcare system, you would think that that's the way it is. And it's not. But we've bought into that structure for so long. We've bought into this siloed approach to healthcare. You see the gastroenterologist for your gut. You see the psychologist for your brain. And don't get me wrong, I know we need specialists in their field, and I respect that. But what we need to do as people, what we need to do as humans and as the most important member of our healthcare team is to know how to navigate and break down those silos by listening to our bodies, listening to the whispers before they become gongs, and actually getting into action when it comes to our health. And you can't do that until you start to get real and listening to how you feel. There's been a real movement in mindfulness. And I think a lot of this comes out of fear because people are like, I can't get still and be quiet because I'm frightened of what I'm going to hear.
Exactly.
But what if we don't hear? It's not going to prevent the diagnosis.
It's still going to happen. Yes.
And maybe even worse, like you mentioned, because we don't have an opportunity to do something proactively to prevent it. So this is why it seems so cool to me that the universe has brought us back together when you're in a time of change and transition in your life and your career. And I'm at a time of transition and change in my life. I left what was comfortable. I ran an integrative health clinic for 30 years. I loved it. I still love being a healthcare professional. I'm still treating a couple of days a week, but I've backed away from that more because I want to do this more legacy work, this change work where we are going to literally challenge the system. Talk to government, talk to politicians, but also talk to everyday people to ignite them to think about, we have the ability to change this, but we've got to do it collectively together.
Individually and collectively, as you were just saying. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Better
because we have
together.
to support each other. We have to support each other and keep those communication lines open to make sure that we get to the right places that we need to be.
Exactly. So now that, we've talked about our story of connection and our belief and our mantra, better together as one, stay tuned because we're going to be back here after a break and we're going to dive in a little bit deeper just about what our plans are here on PHAMCAST. Stay tuned. We're going to be right back.